This is the Slots and Sockets podcast, episode number 11. The PS5 sucks. And in today's episode, I am IRD Moose, and as always, my partner,
Turbo Penguin.
And to kind of kick off the show here, we'll stick with our tradition of announcing driver updates. Looks like NVIDIA shipped us some updates earlier this week.
Yesterday, 9/11.
September 11th. Yep.
Yes, September 11th, the new GeForce update. So
56109. So go grab that if you have a GeForce card. And well, on to our main story for today. The PS5 Pro launched, or was at least announced this week, for $700. And a lot of outlets are saying it's not a great value. And I'm inclined to agree.
But it ray traces, Moose.
Well, it does.
And it has interchangeable sides. And it's the same size as the old one. And
right.
It has a 2 terabyte hard drive, which you could have just put in your old one.
Right, exactly.
But for $700, this will be the most expensive console, I think, ever. I don't think there's a console, even when they had the PS4 Pro, or I'm trying to think of the prior Pro versions, and they all weren't this expensive.
Of the surviving consoles, yes. But if you remember back in the 90s, there was this little thing called the 3DO, and that console was selling for $1,000 in the 90s. That's several car payments then. Now, maybe one or two, but
apparently the payment of a single Honda Accord nowadays.
Right, exactly. Yeah. No, and so, one of the things that they have done is they've gone with a 4-nanometer process for the CPU and GPU. They're still on RDNA 3. And, or I should say it's more like RDNA 2.5.
It's like RDNA like 2.89, because it's going to have the same rasterization on the RDNA 2, but they are giving it a substantial performance buff. It really is kind of like 3.5. It is going to be a monolithic die, so it's not going to be chiplet like RDNA 3. So it really is kind of this quasi weird thing where you're going to have some benefits from RDNA 3. You're going to have the 0.5 because the RDNA 4 is going to have some pretty big ray tracing upgrades, which we understand is going in. So it's really going to be kind of its own really weird, like RDNA 2 Pro, right? Where you get the benefits of some of the 4 things, some benefits from some of the 3 things, but it's still based on a 2. So it is going to be kind of like this little redheaded stepchild, but that kind of makes sense because, again, it's going to be in a console rather than a real computer.
Right. Well, and there's going to be a lot of trade-offs. One of the big benefits is they're increasing the system memory quite a bit. And so that's going to give you more room to handle larger frame buffers. I mean, I wish I had 32 gigs of VRAM, but
I think a lot of people do.
This is actually it. If I remember correctly, it's going to be GDDR7, and that's shared with the CPU. So the CPU and GPU, as with the previous generation, share access to the GDDR7 rather than having dedicated memory for each. And, it definitely is going to be much better performance. It's going to have better image quality than the PS5. But the thing that's really kind of bugging me is, they've stripped the optical drive for it, and which, arguably a lot of people on PlayStation don't really use the optical drive, but
when is the last time you used an optical drive?
Probably when I use my PS3 that's now collecting dust back there.
Okay, so optical drives are kind of pointless and useless. I mean,
yes
legitimately, somebody gave us a movie to watch, and it was on, I don't know, Blu-ray, or it was a disc.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to think about this long and hard. how on earth am I going to play this stupid thing? And I realized that the only way I could play this was to steal grandma's laptop and to plug it in. And I'm like, not worth it.
Yeah. Well, and
So we
that's the
didn't
thing
watch
is,
it.
right. Well, and see that's where, some people who are really into game preservation prefer to stick to the optical drives. People who have a large PS4 library or a large library of media as it is, which some console players do, uh there
Okay,
is
but
some
that's not the
benefit there.
majority.
Right.
But that's not the majority, right?
the
So let's
numbers
talk
the
about the
numbers
majority.
Sony's talking about is roughly 90% of players don't even use the optical drive anymore, which is
Now
fine.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
And it
So
actually could even be higher than 90%. I don't know. But the
I
thing
think
is
that
there it's the hardware looks good. Okay? For what it is, the hardware looks good, but it's just so hecking expensive.
okay,
And
so first, I I'll say this. Okay. An upgrade of a prior generation. If I gave everybody who had a, let's see, this would have been the RDNA 2, right? This is based off
it was
RDNA
RDNA
2
2 and Zen 1.
and Zen 1. So RDNA 2, so this would have been going back to what, 5000 series?
Yeah, right around
So
there.
if I gave you a 5800 XT or whatever it is, 5800X with ray tracing, I'm gonna be like, okay, so I'm not going to use it because my GPU is not fast enough. Now they're going to use it for AI upscaling, which that makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
Okay, but I mean, there's not a generational leap in this. This is
Yeah,
just a,
it's incremental.
let's see if we can make it quicker. And this is like it is an incremental upgrade. Is it faster? Yes. Does it have ray tracing? Yeah, but I don't think it's ray tracing like I think people in PC Topia really think.
Right.
So,
It's just
I mean,
shadows. It's just
exactly.
shadows
So
for ray tracing, which, I mean, that does increase some of the visual fidelity, but
they're
I mean,
using
I
this
can
for
run
upscaling.
shadows in Cyberpunk on my 6800. It
They're using this to run the AI upscaler.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they're doing. They
Well,
want to be able to take a 1080p game, make it look fancier on a 4K or a higher resolution.
yeah.
Period.
Well, and the other thing too is, from what I'm understanding, the AI upscaler tops out at 1800p. So you're basically blowing up an 1800p image to 4K if you're playing it on a 4K TV.
Yeah, we're all disappointed, but I mean, the honest truth is that we're like, well, yeah, duh. This is all stuff that PCs can do like
Have done
for
for years.
years.
Yeah,
I mean,
and it, if you look at Jsu Sense video from yesterday, from September 11th, uh, he actually does a build from Micro Center, which is made up of, just parts you can grab off the shelf. He did a 12th gen i7, or maybe it was an i9, I forget which. And he put a 4060 in there, and he was getting 60 FPS playable with more ray tracing features turned on at native 4K, and then he turned on DLSS.
now, so the question, I behind the scenes, I think that's the loaded question. Like, are you going to have them running? Is this like when they say AI upscaling? Are they talking about FSR? Or are they talking about something different?
They're literally talking about FSR2. So if you
So
look at their press materials, uh, they literally mentioned AI upscaling and FSR as two separate features, even though it's the exact same thing.
okay, so me
Yeah,
and Moose were talking about this and thinking that this was such a bad thing. Now, maybe if you're like on PlayStation 3 and we're like on the fence, then maybe. But I would make the argument that if you're on PlayStation 3 or PlayStation 4 and don't have a PlayStation 5, there's probably a reason that you don't have a PlayStation 5.
right.
So I mean, there's two sides of this. For those of us who don't have a PlayStation 5, this is probably a good idea to go to Facebook Marketplace and find someone who is very passionate about the PS5 Pro and buy a used PlayStation 5 for like $250,
Yep.
and you get into a PlayStation 5 for next to nothing. Um, that I think is a great deal, and that's a good idea for people to be doing. But for $700, I think this is two things: A ripoff, and B, they are getting a game, or they're trying to see if they can charge $800 or plus for the PlayStation 6.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
the loaded question is that we're doing a public service by doing this. So
Yeah.
we are doing the same thing. Okay, so I
Yep.
put together a build. Okay, I have a local micro center. Now, this is everything. So this is a Core i5 2012 Gen 12,600 KF. So unlocked, 10 core, motherboard, 16 gigs of RAM. Okay. Now, so I only did a 256 solid state, but I'm still under on price, so I'm okay. I got this the cheapest. It's a decent case. It's got a glass panel. I
Yep.
got a cooler. I got everything I need. Power supply, the whole 9 yards. Okay. And my out the door cost with a 4060 Ti is $745.
Yep. And that
Okay. Now
also includes a case. I'm not showing that in the screenshot, but that is
it's
included
low,
in
low.
there.
Yeah, it's down low.
It's a cheap
Um,
screen. It's a cheap one, but still.
it's the inland. It's a tempered glass. It's got
Oh yeah,
fans.
yeah, I've seen that one.
It's not
I
bad.
think that's the one Jay picked for his build. The
Yeah.
the one that Inland co-built
Yeah.
with Lian Li.
Yeah. Um, hard pressed to beat this. I mean, for 259, you're getting motherboard, processor, and 16 gig of RAM. That bundle right there is so good. And you know, this build would change as time comes. Like with the 7600X 3D, this would completely change this build. I would be totally willing to go into something like this. But I think the one thing we got to keep in mind, like if you were to do that, the beauty about this is that when you had an extra spare 300-400 bucks, you could go buy a part to upgrade where you have flexibility in what you do.
Yep.
Um, if
Yep.
I wanted to add a second SSD, I can.
You got an extra
If
slot for it. Yep.
when the 5000 series or the 8800 XT comes out, it's going to make, and say, oh, that's great, I want to have more frames. Great,
And you'll
upgrade.
get better ray tracing then too, if
Better
what
ray
they're saying is
tracing.
true.
Okay, so what did you get on your build, Moose?
So I kind of went the route of AMD on mine, and I went with the 7600. Now, granted, my pricing's a little higher, but I was kind of building for a system that would be easily upgradable. So I went with an EVGA power supply, 750 watt, which for this system is wildly overkill, but has plenty of room to grow. And I went with a Ryzen 5 7600 and just picked a random B650M motherboard off the list. And with that, we've got a 500 gig SSD, so I went a little bit bigger on mine, and kind of a low end Cooler Master with tempered glass for the case. It's something that's going to look reasonably presentable, and it has all the same features that you would get from the PlayStation, with better performance and the opportunity to go even bigger. Now, like you had mentioned, Turbo, with the upcoming 7600X 3D sale, a lot of those prices are going to change. And that's kind of where I was pricing this one out, because we don't have the official pricing on that bundle from Micro Center. I was thinking like, okay, let's look at that. And then, like you said, if you get into a situation where you kind of feel like the processor isn't where you need it to be, and you realize, hey, I like doing streaming on Twitch, well, the 9000 series is going to be ready for you with the 9900 X3D. And, if you already go with an X3D part to start, if you go with that Micro Center bundle we talked about a couple weeks ago, that's going to really set you up to be able to jump to that processor and take advantage of the extra cores and the extra performance available to you. The same thing with the graphics card. You know, you've got extra headroom. So if you really did want to go with an 8800 XT, great. There's theoretically enough power in there for a 5080, maybe a 5090. Uh, 5090 be pushing it a lot on that one. But you could very quickly turn this thing from a mid range gaming system to a gaming beast because, as we know, AMD over the last several years has been pushing AM4. 2 years after, or 3 years after they effectively end of life AM4, they're still releasing AM4 parts. So, you know, that you're not going to get that with a PlayStation. And you know, to what you were saying earlier, Facebook Marketplace has a lot of great options. You found this desktop here that it's kind of
Uh,
mid-ish. It's the higher end of the mid-range, I would say, with the 3070 in there. So that's going to get you the RTX performance boost that you don't get from an AMD card currently. Um, with these specs, it should be able to handle 1440p native. And if you wanted to push it and crank up the DLSS a little bit, you could potentially play native 4K, which you
no, you
can't do
totally
with the
could.
PlayStation.
I mean, look, I'm always a sucker for a good deal, and I'm always good to troll on Facebook Marketplace looking at good deals. And all I'm saying with this is that if you're really in that budget of five, six, $700, yeah, I could make $700 go way farther than a PlayStation. I mean, in fact, like 2 weeks ago, I picked up. I mean, I've got a laptop in here that was 650,
Yeah.
and it was a 13600K H, so an i7, 13th gen, and a 4060 laptop with 1080p and 144 hertz. But I'm getting you a screen plus everything else, full system, whole 9 yards.
Operating system, all
And
that. Yeah.
I got mine for 550, and now mine was a Phoenix, 8 core, 16 thread, 32 gigs of RAM,
Yep.
2 terabyte drive. Like, so on the on the used market, look, there's not even a question. Like, if you're really wanting to get into PC gaming, and you're thinking of dropping money into a PlayStation, just go up in a Facebook Marketplace, talk to somebody who knows what they're doing and looking at, because a lot of these are just kind of are like foolproof. Like,
Yeah.
both of these machines that I've got here, like the laptop is actually cheaper at 650,
Yep.
and I mean it's crazy how inexpensive this can be. And, you know, considering that I can then take this and play on an airplane, like the notion, like we're going to PDX land, me and my, and the minion,
And
and
me.
like, and you, but,
Yep.
we're flying, and I'm like, dude, we could play a game while we fly. And so
Yeah.
we've got two laptops. We're going to use those at the LAN party, but we're going to play. You can't do that at PlayStation.
I'm taking my laptop. I'm driving up to Portland for PDX, and I'm even taking my laptop. I don't want to hulk my big honking desktop out there. I got a 4080M in there. I got a 5900H CPU from AMD, and you know, I mean, yeah, it'd be nice to have my desktop, but I'm 43 now, and my back is not happy when I carry my
Don't
desktop
lie.
around.
He's way older than 43.
Oh, rude.
But
So, but yeah,
all we're saying
that's
is
the point.
the point is that if you really wanted to get in, and $700 was your retail buy-in price, you know, you could do way better in PC gaming. The
Yep.
other thing I would make the argument here is, and this is one thing that it kind of, we've heard some people say this. We want to just reiterate it. First, you can buy a Steam Deck, a
Hmm.
portable 720p machine. Okay, it'll plug into a TV without any issues,
Just like all
and
of these. Yep.
just like all these, play pretty much every game in on Steam. I mean, there's a couple that won't, but the vast majority of and you can pick up a used one for like 350. Now, one thing is one of my friends pinged me and gave me a link that Steam will sell you a refurbished Steam Deck. Did you know that?
I did not. That's
There is
interesting.
a refurbished
Hmm.
Steam store with Steam Deck, and you can
Hmm.
buy the original Steam for $299 and the OLED for $349.
That's a freaking
New
good price.
refurbished. It's got a warranty, whole 9 yards. So
Yep.
these are things that came back. Someone fixed it. I don't know if it was Valve that did it or who did it, but someone did it. Um, the
Well, it's
other
coming
thing
from
is,
Valve, so they're going to
yeah,
take care of you if something goes south too.
the other thing that I just want to throw this out there. We know that Valve is going to release a Steam Deck 2.
Yep.
Okay, we know it's going to be a beefier version. We're not sure a lot of the specs because I don't think the specs have been really finalized. I don't think there's any question that it's going to be on an AMD APU because Intel doesn't have an APU, and if it did, it would just overvolt itself. Um, but so we know that that's coming. That's going to be an upgrade, and I think it's probably going to be a resolution and a performance upgrade plus a feature upgrade there too.
Right.
So, could we see an OLED screen? Possibly. Could we see a next gen like a Phoenix or a Hawk Point, or maybe even better? Possibly. It is going to be an all-in-one APU, so I mean, just keep that in
It's
mind.
Well, the APU in the Steam Deck now, if I remember correctly, is pretty much on par with the PS5's current APU.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know,
But the other thing that we got to keep in mind,
PS5
Steam,
Pro in your hands. Come on.
but Steam has done Steam machines in the past.
They have.
And I think, they've gone so hard into not making games and so hard into making hardware. It is natural. I don't even think this is a question. I have no sources. There's nothing here.
Mhm.
There has got to be a Steam desktop or a Steam machine version 2.0 coming out.
I would be very
Because
surprised if that's not the case. Yeah.
because you could bring you could take the specs of a Steam Deck 2, take the battery out, put it in some plasticky little case, power it up, and to give it more juice, put
Heck,
a
Strix
fan that
Point.
you could do, and now you don't have to worry about thermals, and you could take that 17 watt and say, we're going to give you 35 watts, and we're just going to just power the bejeevers out of you and make a replacement for your Xbox, because I
Yeah.
don't think look, Xbox has got nothing, and developers aren't happy with Xbox. Things are not
Yeah.
looking good that Xbox is going to be a thing, and unless Microsoft really makes a turn there, it will be very interesting to see if Xbox is something that just goes away.
Well, yeah, and Strix Point, with it being the next generation APU on on the mobile side, I would say that makes a heck of a lot of sense to build into something like a uh, Steam Deck box. That you put in your entertainment rack like you would a PS5 or an Xbox 360. Wow, that's not even the current generation. But
Yeah,
yeah, whatever the Xbox is now, the series or see, and I
Series
think that's
S
part of
and
the
X.
problem too in their marketing is for Xbox. Nobody knows what to call the console anymore because it was the Xbox One, then it's the series, and is it the X or the S or the LMNOP? And
Well,
Microsoft has a lot of issues with their stuff. It's
I just think that
you know
if you don't have Microsoft and you don't have them really, or you feel like that they're not going to compete, this is on so many different levels, so much competition
yeah.
that Steam could be pushing. This could be Steam to get a crap ton of users and a ton of experience for Linux and gaming. And so this is direct competition for Windows.
Yeah.
This is direct competition for Sony, if they could make something that's going to be, and I don't know if it necessarily is going to be as good or needs to be as good as a PlayStation 5, but the ability to play everything. because let's be honest, if I'm playing Steam, I have Helldivers.
Yep.
I get Forza. Um, I don't know if necessarily those titles, those Xbox titles, are going to go away, but they're probably going to be still being made. Some of these titles, it might just be that these come onto Steam and Microsoft Store,
Well, yeah.
because there's purely money to be made.
Yeah.
Like there's money out there,
Well, and
and
they're
if
already
Microsoft
building
doesn't
them.
want it,
They're already building these games for DirectX, because that's
yeah.
the Xbox runs Windows Server in a hypervisor with DirectX. So, it's the same. You're literally running the same OS. It just has different candy over the top of it
Mhm.
that you don't have on a PC. And that's why a lot of these ports have come over so quickly from Xbox, because, it's just like, hey, click a box and say make it ready for Windows too, because it already
So
is.
the I part of me wonders if Microsoft is going to sell a certification. They're no longer going to sell machines. They'll sell you an Xbox certification, and they'll have like level 1, 2, like level X and level S, like
Yeah,
and
I
then
think that
a
it makes
more
sense.
like an extreme version, and say this has the ability to do this and these games do it, and you can get from the Windows Store,
Yeah,
or you can get it through Steam. But your machine, if it has this, is capable for this. Microsoft has to do something. They can't just let Xbox go away, and it would be bad for them just to let it go away. But I think it needs to be maybe reinvented,
yeah,
or they have to commit, money in the terms of hardware. And I don't know if they'll actually do that. Um, I don't think they quite know right now. And if we think the economy is kind of going down, it would make sense for them to say, we're not going to make the next gen console. We'll let somebody else do it. Maybe the certification thing is a good idea. We're not giving up, but maybe we're not going to commit that much money into what we're going to do. And I think that there's probably some conversations within Microsoft of what they really are going to do. It's possible they've already made these decisions. I don't know, but this episode is really clear.
yep,
Don't buy a PlayStation 5 Pro. If you really, really, really are just infatuated with Sony, keep your PlayStation 5. Don't buy this.
yeah,
The number one thing that I have to say about this is that this is Sony conditioning people to pay more for a console. So every time that one of these sells, it is more proof to Sony that this either A, doesn't sell well, or it does. And that they are testing this price point out to see, and they're not trying to get you to buy a PlayStation 6 for $799. They're trying to see, if I have a PlayStation 5 Pro at $799 or $699, can I sell a PlayStation 6 at $849?
yep,
This is what
yep,
they're doing. They are
yep,
doing the exact same thing that Nvidia has done.
yep,
They are trying to figure out how much money they can screw you for before you stop buying it,
yep,
because they're not going to drop game prices. In fact, I would go the exact opposite. Now that you have bigger games with more higher textures, it's going to be more expensive. So they really are. And so my suggestion and my point of view is simple. Do not buy this at all costs. Build your own PC. Go buy a secondhand used one, or just play on a lowly PlayStation 5 until PlayStation 6 comes out. But
yep.
part of it's my understanding that there are a good number of people who have not bought a PlayStation 5 because they said it was too expensive.
Yeah. Well, and one of the other objections that a lot of console enthusiasts give to, well, just build a PC, is, well, yeah, but I can't use my controller. Really? This is the elite Xbox controller right here. I use this with my PC and it works flawlessly. Game
You can
support
use
has been fine forever. You can use a PS5 controller if you prefer, and if you already have controllers, you connect it to via Bluetooth. If your board doesn't have a dongle, spend $5 on Amazon and get a Bluetooth dongle. Problem solved. And you automatically get a better experience right off the bat. You also get things like Steam sales. I mean, how often have you seen games on PlayStation that were $5 that 6 months ago were selling for 70? That doesn't
Look,
happen.
there's a couple of stuff, and I get that there's titles that are Sony only.
Sure, sure.
I get that.
I mean, if you're
And
hardcore into
if
Gran
you're
Turismo, you're gonna get a
yeah,
PlayStation.
but I'm going to make the argument that unless you have a new version of the game, developers. So for existing games, people have to realize that developers are going to have to go in and enable some of these features so it works better, or it's going to look the exact same.
Yep.
So the
It might run
original
at a better
games that
frame
came with
rate.
PlayStation 5
Yeah.
are not going to be any better.
They'll run at a better frame rate if they don't patch it. That's
Can
about
your
it.
I beg to differ that you won't be able to tell the difference.
I don't
If you
know.
don't use if you can't use the AI scaling,
I've heard a
and
lot of complaints about it, about the regular PS5 chugging.
then this is
on
a
some
reason
games.
why you should not own a console.
Yeah.
Don't buy a console. Consoles suck.
I mean, look, that there is a place for them, but that place, because of what Sony is doing now with the PS5 Pro, I think is rapidly diminishing. And I honestly, any of these systems we talked about, you can plug it into your TV if you really want to use it that way. I do with my desktop. When I want to relax on my recliner and play Cyberpunk or whatever, and I play it all at native 4K on a GPU that's, granted it's a $700 GPU now, but I've had it for 3-4 years. And the other thing that I see a lot of console owners doing is their console will just randomly die on them. The blue light of death is a popular topic that's cropping up right now. And most people I know that run into issues like that just buy a new console. Do you really want to spend $700 every 2 to 3 years to get a new console that's performs exactly the same as it always has? Or
Look, I think
would you rather turn that around into a better GPU?
No, I think it's just a simpler. It's easy. The notion of why the people do that is it's easy to go to Best Buy, buy the same thing, unplug the old one, plug the new one in, and turn it on, and it works. You don't have to think about anything, and I think that's probably where a lot of people are. And if so, to be honest, it's probably where you need to be looking at a laptop, a gaming laptop, and you can absolutely find gaming laptops with decent specs in the used marketplace.
There's a great example.
Way
right
better.
There. Yeah.
Way better than what you have, and it's plug and play. And I make the argument it's all you got to learn is install Steam. I mean, just install Steam.
Install Steam. If you have Xbox, install the Xbox Marketplace, and if you have your Game Pass with Xbox, you can play a lot of your Xbox games without even going to Steam. If you have an existing library or you have the Game Pass, you have it on Windows too. You're good to go. You just need hardware to back it up. And that MSI laptop, from some of the stuff I've seen, is a little on the high end of the price range. But if you stuck in that $700 price range, you can usually find something that's a year or two old that it runs circles around a PS5 Pro. And on that note, I think it's time we call it the end of the show, because we're right about that time. And I want to thank you all for watching. And, if you liked our take on this, give us a like. If you disliked it, dislike it. Leave some comments down in the doobly-doo there. And remember to like and subscribe and all that fun YouTube stuff. And until next time, have fun storming the castle. Good night, everybody.